but it basically meant that we had to go and buy, like, I don't know which staff member had to go and buy Chelsea socks from the Chelsea shop, and basically we just covered the logo in tape. And I think that is probably the most humbling moment of 2024. For the last time in 2024, welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. It does feel like a little bit of a end of an era sort of episode today. I mean, we've got one game to look back at, but it's mostly just reflecting on the year, I feel, and looking ahead to 2025. Although this podcast I've only really done for a couple months now, it does feel sort of, it does feel like it's an end of something. And I'm like, no, let's see it as the start of something new. But this will be the last episode that I do film in 2024. So, yeah, let's get into it. We've got a poll, we've got a game, we've got reflections to look on, and we've got a couple of games coming already, one being the first day of the new year. So there's a lot to get into, so let's get into it now. I just realised I'm really carrying on this winter energy with my beanie. It's actually because my hair's greasy, so if you're listening on Spotify right now, head over to YouTube if you want to see a little greasy bob, or actually not see it because it is basically hidden. But anyways, before I waffle about something completely random, let me just find my warm-up poll. So today it's actually not a warm-up poll because I feel like it's the end of the year, so I want to do reflections, and I feel like it's better to get opinions. And it's been really good to see that a few of you guys have popped up to it. So I'm just going to read out a few of them, suggestions. But the question that I put out, just as a question today, not a poll, is what's on your Arsenal 2025 wish list? This is something that I feel like a lot of people speak about when you get into the end of the season, but I thought, why don't we speak about it, get into the end of 2024, you know, Christmas vibe, like what's on your Christmas wish list? But let's focus purely on Arsenal, men and women, not fussed. Let's get a few of your answers. So someone said Bon Mati, obsessed with that. I would love to see Bon Mati. I feel like there's a lot of players that I want to see come to both Arsenal men and women. The men, I want to see Isak, people like that. I feel like we've got a good team that we're building. We've got good youngsters, but I feel like we do still need that maybe out and out striker just to add a bit of stability. But I do feel like Isak is a bit far off. Bon Mati for the women, great shout. I love the shout of Kira Walsh. No one's actually messaged that, which is rude because I feel like Kira Walsh could be an option. I mean, it was so rumoured back in the summer transfer window. So January transfer window could be where it's at, but I think probably more realistically next year, because I feel like not many players get really transferred in January. George, I'm outing his name, it said to bottle top four and let Forest take their place, which, you know what, Forest are actually doing very well. Arsenal won't bottle it. We're doing well. We're going to come in the top three no matter what. I've just said we're going to come in the top three no matter what. Okay, that's a bit of a crazy statement from me, but I feel like Forest could get in the top six, you know. But I don't know. I was talking to someone. I was talking to one of my friends that supports Bournemouth, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like it would be cool if you guys got European football as well." But then they were saying that obviously you have to juggle it with the Premier League, and then you'd end up doing bad or poor in both competitions if you don't have the financial backing, basically. Which we sort of saw from Newcastle that they struggled with then competing in both Europe and the Premier League as well. Like you do see it with a few teams, even with financial backing. So you know. A lot of people are saying a trophy of any kind, win at least one silverware. I want a trophy. Yeah, I feel like wanting a trophy is a common theme for Arsenal in 2025. Men or women would take anything at this point. And because I feel like we always have them teams, like Spurs is obviously one of them, where we're always saying, oh yeah, you haven't won a trophy. But I'm like, guys, we're going to get to that point if we don't actually get the silverware this season or next season. Like we've got to be on it, but this season is our main focus. So 2025, we're getting that. Someone actually said to get a new manager and more players. I'm not sure which side we're thinking of, because the women's side, if you're talking about getting Slagers in, 100% I'm here for that. I don't think we need another manager. I think we've got the perfect manager in Slagers. But then if you're talking about Arteta, I think that's a bit crazy. Like, relax. He's got time. Yeah, there's just a few suggestions on the Arsenal 2025 wish list. I do feel like the common theme is silverware, pretty much. So let's hope, fingers crossed, that going into 2025 we can get more silverware and give the fans what they need. But to do that, we have to win the games that we're currently playing in. And you know what we actually did this week? Might not have been the most convincing performance, but we did win it. So let's get into the Ipswich game. Okay, so because this week there was only one game, which was a pretty good game, I mean points-wise anyways, I kind of thought, let me bulk out this little section and include some highlights and lowlights from 2024, so both the men and women's side, because I feel like there's been a lot on both sides, you know. But let's start with the Ipswich game. So Arsenal 1, Ipswich 0, and yes, I did predict it to be 4-0, and yes, I do feel like we could have had more momentum, we could have had more passion, more excitement. I just didn't feel like there was as much creativity. Partly maybe we've relied too much on Saka to be a creative source for Arsenal, and maybe that's something we need to look at going forwards of, right, can we rely on other players, or can we actually just not rely on just singular players but look at the team as a whole and anyone can slot in? Maybe that is an improvement we can make. But I do think we got the 3 points, and I've been seeing a lot of people saying, oh yeah, but we should have won at least like 3-0. Don't get me wrong, I do think we should have been doing that. I mean, if we're able to win like 5-1 against a side like Palace, we should be getting a few more goals past a side like Ipswich. They've had a all right season considering just being promoted and where they are and what they have, but I do think that we should be exploiting it more if we want to be title contenders, which I think we definitely are title contenders. If we want to actually be lifting that trophy this season, I feel like we definitely do need to be actually upping it and proving it with the goals. But there is this like saying, statement, quote, I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's basically that good sides don't play well but will always get the win. Something, you know, I think I've just sorted that phrase, but something along the lines of that, because it's basically saying that although you might not have the most amazing game, you will still get the win. And at the end of the day, if you look at the league table, people don't really care, oh, you've had this amount of possession, or oh, you've got this many fouls, or you had this many shots on target. It's about the shots that went in the net, you know? So it's about what actually happened, like point wise. So in terms of that, I think, yeah, we got the crucial 3 points we needed. I think there are a few good things to take from it. Obviously, not just the points, but we had Miles Lewis-Skelly, who got the player of the match. It's good to see a young player, very passionate, very mature performances, how they worded it on Arsenal's Instagram, and I completely agree with that. I feel like that is a good way to summarise it, and it's good to see him Winery this season. Like, that is, to be fair, not to jump ahead, but that is a good highlight from 2024. We've seen the youngsters, and I feel like that was a good way to end the season. The goal did come in the 23rd minute, so it did come quite early on, and it was basically a Trossard cross, Havertz finish, and there was no way Havertz wasn't going to score that, but I think it's just his composure, just straight like volley in the back of the net, side foot volley up. Like, it was just beautiful to watch. And there was another goal from Jesus. It was called offside, but it's good to see him still getting in there. And I think with Saka out of the team, there's been a lot of debate of, oh, okay, who's going to be the attackers, who's going to be up top and whatever. And I think it just is great to show that, I don't know, that we do need Saka. I don't know where I was going with that. Like, we do need Saka. We can't replace him, but it's good to show that we do have other people that can slot in. I mean, I like the vibe of like a Jesus, Havertz, Trossard up at the top. I think that's quite nice. And if you've got Rice and Partey behind, or Martinelli slotted in there, and then you take Partey off and drop Havertz back into midfield. Like, there's so many different options, but I think, yeah, you can't replace Saka, and we wish him a speedy recovery. But it's good to see that we are still able to win those games. Maybe just not as much as we could with him. It's the same when we had Ødegaard missing. We weren't able to win or be as clinical without him, because I feel like they are both two of our most creative players on the pitch, so they're able to get the ball in places that you wouldn't even consider. But this game was overall, I feel like I've got a bit of a negative vibe towards this game, but I do feel like this game was really good because results wise it puts us second in the league, and I think second going into 2025 is such a good position to be in. We've just overtaken Chelsea by 1 point. We're 6 points behind Liverpool, but I think we can do that. Like, we can chase them, and we've got so many games. We're literally like halfway through the season. We can't be ruling out anything. Don't get me wrong, we can't be ruling out Chelsea competing either, but I do feel like if anyone's going to beat Liverpool, it will be Arsenal, because we've had that history the last couple of seasons where we've got close to it, and I think now we know, right, what we need to do to get that final push. I think City they're completely out of this race. They're so far down that I don't even see them as a threat. Don't get me wrong, we can't completely rule them out, but I do feel like we're just miles ahead in that. So I'm feeling pretty good with that game. And that is our last game of 2024, which is crazy. Obviously, the women didn't play this week. The women don't actually play for another couple of weeks in the FA Cup, so it's mostly just focused on the men. But I don't want to focus purely too heavily on the men. So let's take a look at some 2024 highlights. Okay, so a lot can happen in a year, like a lot. So I've tried to narrow it down to 3 highlights for both the men and women's side, and 3 lowlights for both the men and women's side. I don't know if to start with the highlights or lowlights. Let's start with the highlights. Let's start on a positive. Actually, let's start on the lowlights. I feel like I always would rather get the negative out of the way and then you end on a high. So, lowlights. We're going to start with the women's side because we finished our 2024 season slightly earlier than the men's, so we're going to start with them. Number 1, it's got to be that Sockgate. That Sockgate incident happened March the 15th. I'm gonna take you guys back to this Sockgate incident. Happened March the 15th, 2024. We ended up losing 3-1, and the whole issue was that our kit person, who, not sure if they're still the kit person, bit of a sore subject, that one, but basically we forgot our socks, and there's a rule or something that you're not allowed to wear white socks at Stamford. I don't know why, or I don't really know what, but it basically meant that we had to go and buy, like, I don't know which staff member had to go and buy Chelsea socks from the Chelsea shop, and basically we just covered the logo in tape. And I think that is probably the most humbling moment of 2024, if I'm being honest. So for me, that is number 1 on the lowlights for the women's side, pretty much for the whole club, pretty much for probably the WSL. That's got to be lowlight as a whole, because I don't think we're ever going to be able to forget that. I mean, even Jonas came out after and said it was embarrassing. So, you've hit an all-time low. Another lowlight for us, this is really sad, I'm so happy I'm starting with the lowlights. Another one is saying goodbye to Miedema this year. We said bye to her on the 13th of May 2024, and that does feel like a while ago now. Like, I feel like she hasn't played for Arsenal for ages, and saying bye to the top WSL goal scorer is pretty crazy. And I do feel like everyone shed a few tears. By everyone, I mean Gooners, because I feel like City were just like tears of happiness, and other clubs are just like, oh, City is strengthening. And I feel like that sort of rocked the boat a little bit. It sort of got people thinking, what's Jonas doing? Like, we need to get him out. And I do feel like, in a weird way, Miedema was probably the trigger point for Jonas's downfall, because you lost the fans' backing. I mean, I know I was something like, what's going on? Like, we should be having Miedema in our squad. So, yeah, that was a sad one as well. And the final sad thing that has happened this season, and I'm pretty sure it's happened a couple of times, is fixture clashes, because I think Arsenal women are known for selling out stadiums, breaking record attendances, and then when you're not given the opportunity to do that for a game that you know that you potentially could, it is quite heartbreaking. And that's obviously happened very recently in the Champions League, because the men and women had fixtures at the same time. The men get priority over Emirates, so the women get put to Meadow Park. And I feel like, in terms of, I know this isn't what's happened on the pitch, because both teams ended up winning 3-2 that night, but I think what it does for the fan base, it makes you feel a little bit less than. So I feel like that was a low light. So they're my 3 lowlights for the women's side, and the 3 lowlights for the men's side. We're going to start off really strong. Number 1, the men got no trophies in 2024. Yeah, it's not great, is it? It's not great at all. And to make matters worse, my second low light, I feel like I don't need to say anything else on that, but to make matters worse, my second low light is that the last game of the season, we won it. That, like, in the summer, we won that game, but it still wasn't enough to beat City in the title race. And I think it's just heartbreaking how close it was, because we were so close. Like, I'd rather us be actually good, like 5 points away, and it's like, oh, we'll finish our season on a high. But instead, we finished our seasons on a high, thinking, okay, we actually might be able to win this, and then we didn't. So that's my second low light. And the third low light, which I think is common for all clubs and men and women's side as well, but just so many injuries. I was actually looking up, when I was doing a little bit of research for this, I was looking up the players that got injured. I don't know if you can see, it just keeps going and going and going. And I only just got to January 2024. You started off the season with a few muscle injuries, knee injuries. Jesus was out, Rice was out, Gabriel was out. Then you fast forward a bit more, Timber was out. Fast forward a bit, Raya was out for a bit in September. And now we've got Sterling, Saka, Tomiyasu and White, all 4 players out right now, currently. And I think as well, to summarise this highlight, it's not just about all the injuries, because there's been so many, and obviously some of them are just like a week out or 2 weeks out. The most devastating injury, in my opinion, of 2024 is Saka. I think not only what the media is talking about, because everyone's talking about Saka. You ask someone, oh, how are you feeling about Arsenal? Saka's the first thing that pops into their head. And I know why, because he's literally, you could see the Ipswich game, there wasn't as much creativity down the wing. He offers that. But it's partly, I feel like it is kind of partly Arteta's fault, because, or not just Arteta, we can't just solely put it on Arteta, but all the staff are constantly playing him in games where he could come off, or if we're winning 3-4-0, you don't need to bring him on. Like, there's certain games like that that's happened this season. So I do feel like that's probably the most devastating injury we've had. And it's annoying it's going into 2025. But I'm hoping that for 2025, touch wood, injuries isn't as deep of an issue for us. But I feel like always little injuries are going to be a little bit of an issue. But actually thinking of like these bigger injuries where they're out for a couple months, hopefully we can keep them on a loan. So that's 6 lowlights of 2024. Before we get too bummed down, let's look at the highlights real quick. Let's try to ramp up the mood. So we're going to start with the 3 women's side, because like I said before, 2024 season for the women's finished earlier. So number 1, I want to start with signing DVD Daphne Van Domselaar. She has been unreal for us. I think going into the year, I sort of was like, yeah, we like going into, well, we signed her in the summer, so going into this season, the 24-25 season, I was thinking, yeah, we do need a keeper, because I feel like Zinsberg's maybe dropping off a little bit or whatever. But I didn't expect the keeper to become this crucial for us. I think there's been so many games where she's tapped it over the bar. Like her and Raya, I've mentioned this a lot on the pod, there's similarities, like they mirror each other in how they play and when they make their crucial saves. And I feel like she always knows when to do it. Like she always does it at the perfect moments. So I feel like Van Domselaar is a great signing for us, and that is definitely a highlight, because she's kept us in the game a lot of times when we needed her. I think number 2, which I'm hoping can be fully confirmed in 2025, is Slagers taking over from Jonas Edeval. Right now she's just interim manager, but hopefully she becomes the full-time head coach, manager, whatever you want to call her. Hopefully she becomes the leader of the pack. I just feel like she's been a breath of fresh air since we've had her in 2024. She's been unreal for the squad. Russo's back playing her best. We've got players linking up that you maybe didn't see before, because I feel like Jonas didn't want to put certain players on the pitch at the same time. A lot of players have come back from injury, which definitely has helped her flow with the squad. But I just feel like she's been such a breath of fresh air that you can't fault her. So I feel like that is definitely a highlight for us. Obviously within that highlight is sort of Jonas leaving, but not in a horrible way. I don't want to be horrible to him, because he was good for us until more recently. But it was his time to go, so I feel like the club actually making those conscious decisions, or them coming to a mutual agreement, whatever, that's good to see. And sort of Russo coming back to life, I think we've seen that a lot recently, and she's got to be in my 2024 highlights. But in particular, she scored quite a few goals in the last 6-7 games. She scored a lot in 2024. But the one goal I want to pick out is Russo scoring within 2-3 minutes at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the North London derby. I think that is such a big game. Anyways, it's an iconic fixture for both the men and women. Not as much for the women's, but it is still up there. It's still a good fixture, and I think just coming straight out the blocks, just showing we want this. Just, yeah, unreal. And we went on to win it. So North London is red still, and I feel like Russo was a big reason for that. So I feel like that definitely is one of my highlights anyways. Moving on to the men's side, we've got 3 highlights. The first one, Arsenal have become the kings of set pieces, and I think that's down to Nicholas Jova. I think our set piece coach, yes, he joined in 2021, so not quite a 2024 signing, but I think he's really come to life this year. Obviously he knew Arteta before, they were at City before, and you saw the impact he had with City and set pieces, and now he's implementing it with Arsenal. I think we've become a threat whenever there's a corner, whenever there's a penalty. It's like, oh, we don't want that to be in Arsenal's favour because we're likely to score it. And I think it's a good position to be in. I'm just rooting to get as many corners as possible. So that's definitely highlight number one. Highlight number two is Calafiori's goal. I think I've really wanted to pick out a goal, and I feel like there's so many, like you could talk about Rice's goal against West Ham, in that massive clean sheet. I feel like we've had a few of them big clean sheets, but I just thought this Calafiori goal, he lobbed it straight from outside the box, and he's a new signing, so it was great to see him get on the score sheet, especially when you wouldn't expect him to due to his position. And also it was against City. Needed to mention that part. It was 2-2 against City, so I think if he didn't do that, we would have lost points. And as much as, yes, City are now further down anyways, I think it's just crucial getting those points, and that's probably built up some momentum. So it's really good to see him on the score sheet. I was very impressed from the get-go. And the third highlight is the Labyrinth Fashion Walk, which we obviously know that Rice took part in, as well as Calafiori and a few other players. But it was just great to see the men almost combine this fusion between fashion and football. I feel like that is a highlight. I know it's not on the pitch, but I feel like it's worth noting a few off the pitch highlights as well. I just feel like it's good to show that fusion at such a high and sophisticated level, and there's lots of possibilities in the industry, definitely. And yeah, it's just, football's not got to be so linear. You can add other sources of creativity within football to make it more than just football. So yeah, that's my highlights and lowlights. Let me know down in the comments what your highlights and lowlights are, because I'm intrigued. I feel like we've still got a few days before the year ends, so I feel like this is a good time for us to fully reminisce on 2024, and then we can put it to bed, take what we want into 2025 and smash it in 2025. We've got 2 fixtures next year, and don't worry, you don't need to wait a whole year. It's actually only, I think, 3 or 4 days from when this is going out until the first fixture. It's only the men playing this week because the women don't actually start back until the 12th of January. So the next couple of podcasts episodes will be purely about the men's fixtures. But yeah, let's focus on that right now. We've got Brentford versus Arsenal on Wednesday in the Premier League, and I'm going to predict a 2-3 win. 2 goals for Brentford, 3 goals for Arsenal. I don't know if that made any sense as I said that. It was good to see Miles Lewis-Skelly getting some minutes this week, and I feel like hopefully we'll see more minutes this game. I mean, we do actually have, now we've got, now we've got Calafiori back in the squad. I do feel like we have a lot of options. We actually have like 5 or 6 options for left back, but I do feel like Miles Lewis-Skelly, if he's not starting, definitely should get some minutes. Same for Jesus. I don't know if I want him to necessarily start, but I think it would be great for him to get some minutes this game as well. Brentford aren't an easy side. I mean, they've been putting out a lot of great scores. More recently, not so much, because if you look at the last 5, Arsenal have won 4 out of 5 games in all competitions, whereas Brentford have won 1, lost 3 and drawn 1. So it's not looking as promising for them recently, but that is no reflection on their whole season. I think they've had a very good season so far. It has been a little bit mixed at certain moments, but I do feel like as a whole, and I just love Brentford's club community vibe. Like I'm very much here for it. I feel like they've got a few standout players as well, like Mbeumo and Wizza, who definitely are ones to watch. And yeah, I feel like we can scrape it. I don't think, because this is an away game, I don't think it's going to be an easy one for us. Brentford seem to do well when it's home games as well, so I do think we can get the win, and we better get the win. I mean, this is the first day of the year. We need to start the year on a high, so we need to get that win against Brentford. Same goes for the end of the week. On Saturday, we will be facing Brighton in the Premier League, another away fixture. So yeah, 2 away fixtures this week, which is a lot for us. I'm predicting this Brighton versus Arsenal to be a 3-1 to Arsenal. So Brighton get 1 goal, Arsenal get 3. I do feel like it's something we definitely can do. And I just think going into both of these games, actually, if we look at them as a whole, I don't think we can be complacent. We need to make sure that we're actually on it. We want it. This is the start of the year. I know we've not got Saka, and I think we've obviously not got Sterling to slot in. We need to find some creativity in those spaces. But these games, I think they're not easy by any means, but I do feel like these are games where we can sort of experiment with a few different players in different positions, maybe. But at the same time, we have enough players to cover all spaces. It's just whether they bring that quality. And this is the start of the year, so we need to start the year on a high. I'm feeling confident, so I'm predicting 2 wins from the 2 games this week. Let me know if you agree, because I don't feel like there's any reason why you wouldn't agree with that one. Whether you support Arsenal or not, because I do feel like it is a good start to the year for us, especially if you look at other teams and their fixtures. I'm like, some people have a bit more like rougher fixtures, but for us, I feel like we're pretty calm with it. So I'm excited. So that is the end of the Arsenal Humans podcast in 2024. I'm hoping 2025 brings more episodes, more of you lot listening in, whether that's on Spotify or YouTube, and just, yeah, I'm hoping it brings more points for Arsenal, just a lot more. But also, looking back, I'm feeling like 2024 is a good year. I'm happy I started this podcast in 2024. That is something I'm very grateful that I took the leap and did it, because I am enjoying this, and I hope you guys are enjoying watching or listening wherever you're getting this podcast. And yeah, happy new year. I hope you have a good one. I hope it's been a good year, and if not, I'm sure next year will be even better. And maybe if it's not a good year, it's because you support a bad club, so you should come to Arsenal. That's basically how I'm going to end this podcast. Support Arsenal in 2025. Bye.